It is my honor and my distinct privilege to introduce you to Stephen Newland. Stephen runs what we call Moneywise here at North Point. And if you're watching through North Point Live or even through Facebook Live, this is really exciting. We're really glad you're with us. And for the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to have a conversation about what some of this means in a real practical way. So before we do any of that, Stephen, though, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah.
You're a Cincinnati Bearcat.
Yep, born and raised. Big fan of Skyline Chili, if there's anyone from Cincinnati watching.
Okay, now there's a duel, right, between Skyline and...
Gold Star.
Gold Star.
Yes.
Okay. So did we just create any enemies by...
We may have, but
Okay.
everyone knows Skyline. That's
Okay, okay, all right.
But yeah, so I grew up, born and raised in Cincinnati, and actually went to the University of Cincinnati for school, came out with about $55,000 of debt.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there and I'm like, how am I going to pay this back? It was significantly more than my first year's salary out of school.
Wow.
And so I just figured out a plan, started getting on a budget, really attacking this debt. And over 4 years, I was able to pay that off. And now I get to do this for a living and help other people do the same thing.
That's awesome. And was it your own initiative that caused you to do it?
It actually was, yeah.
That's great.
I sat in my college house like 2 months before I graduated, and I got a plan together, and I said, yeah, 4 years. That sounds about right. I can do it.
And is that about how long it took?
4 years to the day
Wow.
almost, yeah.
Wow, that is awesome. Stephen, you know, even hearing you say that, I mean, you threw that $55,000 number out there with, you did it, just to say that even is just, it's kind of astonishing in a way because we just don't talk about money. There's something that's so private about money. Why is it that sometimes talking about money can be one of the more difficult things to talk about?
You know, I think because it's very measurable. So I can put out there, you know, Clay, I make this much, or I spend this much on Chick-fil-A, or I spend this much on Starbucks, and automatically you can tell me your number, and then automatically there's a comparison.
Yep.
I'm not doing as good as Clay's better at handling his money than I am.
Yep.
And so we're afraid to do that because we don't want to feel like we're inferior. We don't want to feel like we're managing this worse than somebody else.
And the truth is, it's really a silly thing to compare because so many variables around how much money we have, how much money we make, how much debt we have has to do with the start that we got.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not your parents bought you a car when you were 16 or whether or not you grew up in a home with both parents at home or both parents that worked. So much of that has to do with where we are now. So in a way, if we can move past all of that, I think it would help us have better conversations around finances.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you can only manage what you've got in front of you, and let's just manage that well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Stephen, as I said at the beginning, Stephen works here at North Point and manages a group of people that help people make great financial decisions. And we have mentoring. We also have some groups. And we're going to talk about some of that in a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about Andy's message. As you and I talked, we wrote down just a few questions that I think would be helpful for us to talk about together. So let's just start with, what are some, as you think about what Andy shared, you know, the idea that we're to give first, live second, and then, give, then save, then live.
Yep.
What are some practical things that we can implement to help us have more self-control with our money?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of the first thing that everyone kind of expects me to say is do a budget, and that is certainly one of them. But what I would even challenge everyone to do...
And a budget, I hate hearing the word budget because it's kind of scary. But
exactly. Well, it feels restrictive. We don't like guardrails on ourselves. Yeah. But what I tell people is this. Just look at... You can just take the last month or the last 2 months of where you spent money and just look at it and just see, you know, do you like what that says? Are there areas on that you're like, I kind of wasted too much money? And what this will do is it'll help show you what your true priorities are with money. And then you just listen to that. Listen to what you don't like. Yep. That's telling you that's probably not a high priority with money, but it's just spending because it's maybe easy to spend it, whatever that category is.
It was probably 2 weeks ago. I remember walking into, I think I was at a Starbucks or maybe at a restaurant or something, and I was with my kids, and there was a lady there that was balancing her checkbook. And I hadn't seen anyone do that in years. And I told my kids, I was like, hey, pay attention to this. This is like an artifact from the past. But, you know, for some people, it might be actually writing it down. But for other people, maybe they're looking for some online tools to be able to do this well. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the favorite things that I like to point out is EveryDollar. It's an app. It's Dave Ramsey's financial app. And basically what it allows you to do is you can connect it to your bank account, and then when you connect it to your bank account, you have to drag everything you spent money on into a budget category. So you have to spend it on the app.
Okay.
It's not just automatic for you. And so it feels like, even though you're just swiping a card, it doesn't feel as much like you're spending money.
Yep.
When you have to go into that app and drag it, it feels like I'm spending this money again. I'm spending this money.
And it actually makes you begin to categorize it, which makes you begin to measure it and count it and pay attention to it, which is where so much of the power really begins.
Yep, that's spot on. You know, just looking at it, where you spent money at, it's going to show you so many things. That's why I challenge everyone just to do it for a month and see what happens.
That's awesome. Hey, so one of the first steps in applying, not one of them, let me back up and say, what are some of those first steps? And what Andy talked about as he talked through giving, as he talked through saving, as he talked through living, you know, the budgeting might be the first place to begin. And it might not even be budgeting, it might just be counting.
Yeah.
But what are some, when you think about even, let's start with giving, what are some easy things that people can do? What are some easy things they could do today to just begin?
Yeah, so the first thing Andy said I thought was great is just pick an organization that you're passionate about. And if you do that, it's going to make this giving thing feel fun. And it is fun. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, for those of you who might feel like, I don't know what percentage to start with or where to even start, again, pull like the last 4 weeks of your bank statements or credit card statements and just look at every single line and go on down and just make a note every time you see something that you felt like you wasted money on, and just see what that adds up to. And whatever that adds up to, that might be a good place to start next month to start giving.
Wow. You know, one of the probably most helpful things that someone advised my wife and I on, we struggled the first few years of marriage when it came to giving. I think we both grew up in families similar to each other, where giving to the church was, it was just a habit that we knew we were supposed to have, but it was the additional giving. It was the other things on top of that. And so what we would fight over is I would go to lunch with somebody who was, you know, doing some amazing thing with orphans in Africa, and I would give them money right there at the lunch. And then I would go home and tell her about it, thinking she was going to be so excited. And she would say, hey, I wasn't at the lunch. I didn't meet the person, you know? And so then we would end up having this argument over whether or not I was being irresponsible or whether or not she was not being generous enough. And it would just lead to nowhere, and it wasn't helpful. I think for us, just creating a generosity fund, for us, we decided, well, we're going to give to our local church because we think everybody ought to have a plan to support the church that you love. But then on top of that, to have a percentage that was just spontaneous generosity. That alone, I don't want to say it totally changed our lives, but it definitely changed our relationship in regards to finances. And we probably haven't had an argument about money since then. Yeah. Which was so helpful to have. But it all begins with picking a percentage, with picking hey, what number are we going to go for, and then try to live with inside of that.
That's spot on. And one of the things that my wife and I did too is we created what we call the Give, Serve, Love Fund, which kind of follows our Be Rich around here at North Point, where it's just this money we set aside for the random act of generosity, or that random moment where we're like, we just feel led to give, or we just want to give.
Like what? What would be an example?
So you're at Waffle House, right? And then you're
I can imagine being at Waffle House.
Yeah, right. Yeah, smothered, covered. Yep. And you're just like, I don't know why. I just feel like I want to give a $40 tip or a $50 tip. Well, you've got money already set aside for that, and so why not?
Wow.
And then you can bless someone's day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Stephen, here, as we start thinking through that's give, as we start thinking through save and live, here at North Point, there are some resources that we have. In fact, that's one of the things that we really prioritize, which is why, to me, it is so awesome that you help us as a staff person to be able to do this, because there are some systems, some programs that we have to help people give, save, live. Can you talk a little bit about those, and what are those options that people have?
Yeah, for those in the Atlanta area specifically, we have Moneywise groups that are available at all of our campuses, and the registration should be open right now. And essentially what this is a 9-week group with about 12 people. 2 leaders are in that group, and you're just walking through a bunch of different areas of personal finance. You're walking through debt, savings, budgeting, real estate, college, all this stuff. And it just can kind of help you start this conversation around money and start to make some changes. So that's one thing that we have.
And sorry to interrupt. How can people find that?
That's northpoint.org/moneywise. You can sign up right on there. And then the other thing that we have is if you want a financial mentor, but you just want it through email, we actually have that available where you can get an email for 6 weeks, and there's some content, there's an action item in each email, and then you're going to get a reminder about that piece of content to say, hey, did you follow up on that? Did you actually do that action step this week? And you can also sign up for that on northpoint.org/moneywise. All we need is your name and your email, and you'll start getting those emails right away.
And then after, we'll start spamming them with all kinds of
Yes.
crazy financial products.
That's right. You're right. Yeah.
No, we will not. We'll just limit it to those six weeks of email. But what I love about it is it might be a great place to start because this is a really sensitive topic to talk about. And it also might be a great way for those of you that don't live in this area that can't attend one of our groups physically. This might be a great way for you to begin to engage around some helpful financial principles. So that's northpoint.org/moneywise. Last thing, Stephen, you mentioned Moneywise mentors. We have a lot of mentors who, when people come to us with needs or with challenges or, hey, I need to figure out how to get financially free, and we will help them find a Moneywise mentor. That's part of what you do. There might be some people that are listening today or watching today that would actually make great Moneywise mentors. What are the qualifications that you think of? Obviously, you have to have an accounting degree.
Yeah. You have to be a certified financial planner. No, you actually don't need any of that. What we look for are people who just like to are passionate about having these conversations with people around money.
And it's okay if you've had a bunch of debt in your own life.
100%. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I had $50,000+ of debt, and I get to work in this program every day. And so what we're doing is we're helping people really set up a budget and get on a plan to pay off some debt or build an emergency fund. And that's kind of where the expertise stops with Moneywise. We have professionals available if people have questions.
Refer people to.
Yeah, if people have questions, about more specific things. But then the only other qualification would just be if you have a heart of a teacher and you just want to guide and encourage people around money. That's all we're looking for.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I would imagine a lot of times people are intimidated to take that step because they think maybe you do have to have some kind of degree or certification. Honestly, just people that are willing, people that are available to open up their own lives and help other people is really just, that's what we're looking for. So if that's you, they can also go to northpoint.org/moneywise.
That's right. Yep.
And you can click on the link to become a Moneywise mentor as well. Any final thoughts that you want to share, Stephen, before we conclude today?
I would just echo what Andy said. If giving has been a hurdle for so long, I promise if you just try it for a couple months, it really is one of the most fun things you can ever do with money. Today, you just pick that organization. You might even already have it at the top of your mind of, I just would love to support them. Pick that number or pick that organization and just figure out a number and don't let that stop you and just start just write that check or send that money away. You won't regret it.
That's awesome. I really don't think you will either. Stephen, thank you for being a part of this.
Yeah.
You do a great job just explaining this in real simple terms for those of us that might not have all the degrees. So thank you. Thank you for watching today. We're so grateful that you chose to be a part of North Point today. If you found this helpful, we would love it if you would share the link. It's just amazing how powerful it is when you share the experience. And so we would just love to encourage you to do that on whatever social media platform you are, or maybe it's just texting or emailing a friend. And we hope that we'll see you back here next week.